I'm David Abrams, founder and CEO of Masonry. I sat down with Myles Grossman at Joule House in Wynwood, a development we're actively bringing to life. What started as a conversation about real estate became a conversation about something else: what we build and why it matters. Enjoy the conversation. Mr. Myles, welcome to Wynwood. We met in real estate, but I want you to take me back. What was that ripple effect, that first thing that made you come towards real estate?
My initial inspiration came from my grandfather. He, back in the 60s, inherited a piece of property from his father that was a drive-in movie theater. And his vision was to renovate that and turn it into something more updated with the times. So he developed a 70,000 foot strip center. And I remember being 7 or 8 years old, going to this center. My grandpa walked me through and said, I built this building. I put in Potbelly and Old Navy and all these tenants. I thought it was the coolest thing that he got to curate this vision for this project. And that was a huge source of inspiration. And I remember being in high school. I had my first internship. There was no question it was going to be real estate.
I want to go back to your grandfather's property for a second. 70,000 square feet, single story. Is that still existing?
That still exists
Does he
today.
still own it?
Yes, he does.
Okay. So I would love to understand if it started as a drive-through movie theater. We did a rooftop cinema club in South Beach. We're working on another deal now in Fort Lauderdale. Has he ever considered bringing it back to its roots and putting a rooftop cinema on the roof of this?
What a
store?
great question.
Right.
I don't know if he's made
Can you
that
please ask him
consideration,
that?
but let's talk. I
Okay.
mean, that's the cool thing about real estate is you get to brainstorm and spitball these ideas, and then you actually have the ability to bring them to fruition and into reality. I'll give him a call right after this and we could chat
And
about
this is the grandfather I've met.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's
He lives
awesome.
in Coconut Grove part-time and part-time in Chicago. His center's in Chicago. He's got a couple other pieces of property. And then in addition to that, my father's been in real estate for basically his entire career. He started doing real estate for Subway, helping their expansion in the 90s when they were booming. Then he switched over to the landlord side with General Growth Properties in Brookfield for about 13 years. And then he went back to the tenant side, owning more restaurants. So my grandfather on the landlord side, my father having been the landlord and the tenant side, it was so cool for me to not just work with brands that are customer facing, restaurants, retail, entertainment, but also have the idea of like seeing a vision in your mind and then bringing it actually into the physical world. It's really cool not working for some big corporation that's nameless and faceless. These obviously families have massive businesses, but it's within the family. And so when you're sitting with the principal, with Don Germazian, and you know that this is his family's business that's been, being built for generations. And now Winston Fisher, who's the 4th generation in Fisher Brothers that was founded in 1915. These people aren't just massive corporations that, don't care about their assets. These are families that it's like their family jewel. So you're actually building something that is not just making an impact for the customers, but we're really building these portfolios that the families like treat with tender love and care. And that's very different than maybe some of the big national conglomerates that are really just focused on the bottom line.
We're sitting at Joule House right now. Somebody was asking me, why is it different? You sit inside of this paseo surrounded by art. If you're stuck in a studio apartment, I'm not going to name out any other cities, but we're obviously in Miami where it's gorgeous. But if you're stuck in your 4 walls and you can't get out of your negative state of mind, you walk downstairs, sit in the paseo surrounded by beautiful, real greenery, not BS plastic that we see so many spaces with. I think that's real. Like art makes emotion, art changes your state of mind. And if you can create that environment, that's what we're doing, right? We did not go after restaurants that are just going to shove booze down your throat. That's what Wynwood started as, but it's shifted into this health and wellness world where you see everybody walking in the streets, walking a dog, wearing athleisure, carrying a juice or a smoothie, leaving a yoga class, or on their way to get a facial. And that's what we want to gravitate towards. And, signing someone like Sun Life Organics here speaks to exactly that, right? Who is the customer base that we're trying to bring to this building? I think that from day one, I know you and I were so aligned, and I tie it back to what we just said, which is we have a different perspective in this world, and we're aligned on that. So how do we create that messaging that came from the top, from Winston, from Ken, and bring it down to the leasing front? And I think you've been an incredible partner for that. And I'm very excited to announce to the world the deals we are working on here.
Absolutely. Sun Life was exactly who we envisioned, the type of tenant we wanted to be the first domino. And the amount of momentum that that's already created is incredible. So first of all, I just want to say bravo and kudos to getting that first, it's like you called your shot, and now we're going to hit the next one and the next one, and things are falling in place. So I guess walk me through the process of before you took on the project and you were working on that vision. Obviously, you're thinking about the neighborhood and the trajectory that it's going in here in Wynwood. It's in an evolutionary place. But fill us in on, how you saw this raw space, created a vision in your mind, and now you're in the process of bringing it into fruition.
It's a similar process when we go to any of these buildings. It's what is the makeup of the neighborhood? What's the missing component? Would there be a demand if we created the supply? We take the floor plan. Column spacing is a huge component. Can you vent it for food? Is like Wynwood. There's too much food in the neighborhood. There are a ton of people walking around without a ton of boutique fitness. Take the building that we did in the Upper East Side, Aloe Yoga, Credo Beauty, Aesop, Bondi Sushi, Solid Core, Madison Reed, St. Ambrose.
Stacked lineup right there.
That's a home run of morning, afternoon, and night. Service, apparel, fitness, beauty. Credo Beauty is all natural product. Solid Core, their number one location, was the perfect marriage to the person she's shopping at Aloe. Now she can go work out. It's the same idea here, where if I know that I'm health mindset, where am I going in Wynwood? The customer base here, they're living here now, right? It wasn't this way before. It was all restaurant. Wynwood was built backwards. There was no residential, no hotel, very little office. And it was single-story retail that was primarily restaurant, clubs. It was a great vibe. It was filled with art. It was beautiful. But all of that density got built in the last couple of years. So now where do they go? Are you supposed to be like Edgewater, where at the beginning of the day, you just jump in your car, you head out to your office, and you come back? You might walk by the bay. You have a beautiful park. It's all really nice, but there's no connectivity between it. Obviously, Biscayne is a massive street that blocks it, but Wynwood is Williamsburg, where it's all walkable. You have Second Avenue, where there are cars, but they stop for people. Then that doesn't happen on Biscayne, right? You wait for the light. So if there's a walkability component, how do we drive you for something different each day and consider it an amenity for the upstairs consumer? So the upstairs person that's living at Joule House is not going for the cheapest apartment. They're going for quality. When you walk through this building, this is not a biased opinion. You can go through buildings all around this area, and you can see who is the landlord that built their building to stabilize the rent to sell it in 2 to 3 years. Who's the 5 to 7 year hold, and who's the generational hold. So that is very clear in the finishings and the materials that are used. And that's literally the definition of masonry, right? Built with quality craftsmanship. It all starts at the base, and retail is the face of the building. So we always look at what is the customer base upstairs and what do they want to see downstairs? Because not everybody in Wynwood is going to know when you call your neighbor at Society and you say, meet me at Society, they'll know it. People in the neighborhood will know Joule House, but they ultimately know the retail. Most people from a different neighborhood, Brickell, right? You don't know there are 50 buildings there, but you know where Starbucks is. You know where Equinox is, right? And so the same idea here, if we can bring in the best of LA, Miami, New York, and throw it all into one building, make the community happy. This is not meant to be a shopping corridor, like I said. So it's health, wellness, beauty service, healthy restaurant. That's it.
Love it. I believe health is the new wealth. And so what we're creating in Wynwood is a place where people can be healthy, which essentially allows them to be wealthy. No matter how much money you have, if you don't have your health, you have nothing.
Right.
And so with some of the brands that I can't quite share yet, but there's a couple of really exciting deals that I know we're very close to finishing. And that's going to really redefine this neighborhood, give people an opportunity, not just to live, but to be happy and healthy and actually grow and become the best version of themselves in the space.
When you talked about the central factor to Wynwood, right? Midtown is right here. Just after Midtown comes Design District. Right over the train tracks is Edgewater. Just south of us, Miami World Center. Just south of that, Brickell. You can get to 95, which is running north to south. They're actually going to be adding a new ramp off the highway at 29th Street. A few years ago, you looked at it, was nothing. And now L&L built a behemoth of a building. Amazon opened their offices. Sterling came in and built the most beautiful Class A office tower that shines in the daytime. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's very far away from everything. Sony signed 50,000 square feet. Gibson Guitars just recently signed with Goldman Properties at the Wynwood Garage building, where WeWork is at the top of the building. You have Spotify offices at the Wynwood Oasis. Amazon, which I mentioned, is going to be having a studio. So what was this club going place is all of a sudden this upscale, music-centric, art-filled location. So there's a real trend that's happening right now. Sable, our friend Arnaud Magal, who I brought down from New York, that opened Novella, which is an incredible Mediterranean restaurant, cafe, and Yobi K, Yoga and Pilates out of Williamsburg, out of Brooklyn. The neighborhood has the fundamentals today. It didn't. It still has some room to grow. But when you look at Design District, same issue. It's great for shopping. There's a little bit of office. The residential side, it's essentially nothing, right? You have some single family homes, but when you go 3 blocks west, you're not in Design District. And Edgewater, very dense. Like I said, on the residential side, you have some office, but you have no real retail. There is retail, there is no retail environment, is what I'm getting at. And that walkability doesn't exist. I said it before, Miami World Center, massive residential buildings, beautiful new construction. It's an entertainment zone, right? You look at all the deals that they've signed, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that retail will struggle there. I think that's much more restaurant and service oriented, like what we're going for here. And then Brickell, which is the closest thing to New York City. There is so much here, so much close by. You might have heard of Wynwood before, and I know you might have seen it years ago. It's not what it was. And that's where I think the closest comparison is Williamsburg.
Without a doubt. And not only is it not what it was, but the trajectory and the velocity at where it's, slated to be in 1, 3, 5 years. I mean, let's talk through it. I'm very excited to drive around the hood and, you can point out some of the exciting developments.
Yeah.
But, for the last, 20 months since I've started with Fisher, I come here almost every single month. And you can literally watch buildings go up, tenants come in, the community is evolving. The customer that you see frequenting, the streets around here is completely different. They've added the brand new Moxie Hotel. The Arlo is also here. So hotels, was not necessarily part of this market just a couple short years ago. And now with 2 really strong hotels, in addition to
strong restaurant
game changer, Uchi's phenomenal. So there's some incredible destination restaurants. Joe's Pizza is doing just ridiculous volume. And that also leads to another interesting concept is you started up in New York real estate. Now you're down here in Miami. There's a huge migration happening, but there's also tremendous connectivity between the New York brands who want to be here in Miami, Miami brands who, like Motec started here and then they opened up in New York. What really creates that and breeds that connectivity, and how can, we leverage that as, Fisher is a New York-based landlord, Since 1915, Fisher's been considered one of the royal real estate families of New York. Now here we are. This is our first development in Miami. You started in New York. You had your brokerage career there. Masonry now is based here. You've still got your team of, some people based in New York and Miami. So let's talk through that connectivity and how we're, really supporting a lot of New York brands to come to Miami and vice versa.
So our team is actually bigger in New York than it is in South Florida. I can run through the number of tenants that I started with in New York, right? I met Alo on the deal on the Upper East Side that I mentioned. And now handle the rollout in South Florida. Sun Life, we were working on a deal at 75 Kenmare. COVID hit, and I said, what about Miami? And we signed South Beach for his first Florida location. Bondi Sushi, we did close to 10 deals in New York. We've done 5 deals down here now. Historically, retail wanted New York or LA first, and then you would go on an expansion from there. You reach a point in your expansion, you're doing volume at a handful of locations in New York, you have to expand. Economies of scale, you want to be next to your customer base that's visiting from LA, that's visiting from Miami. So you go where the customer is, right? I mean, this whole retail apocalypse from 2017 to 2019 and COVID hit, no one's ever going shopping again. It's comical, right? Because we recognize office needs retail, residential needs retail. Everybody wants and needs retail. Do plenty of people order things from Amazon and shop online? Sure. I do that too. I shop for certain things online, but you never find me buying other things. I buy this quite obviously, but I love retail. I love the experience of walking inside of a store, touching the product, seeing how much it costs in person, having that conversation. You get that from being in multiple cities, and you see that there's different customer base and you have to provide different product to different cities. So there's so much psychology, which I started as a marketing major in school, that I love going deep into. What is your strategy? What is your brand perception? Where do you want to be, right? That's when we say we want to work on a 5-year rollout. I need to know the entire persona of who you're trying to go after, because I know the real estate. I just have to match you up with where you want to go.
But the design district is one of the most unique markets and one of the most dynamic markets in the country. And I think you did the coolest deal in the design district. Tell me that story. For those who don't know, Supreme not only opened up in an awesome flagship location in an awesome market, there is on the second level of the store a skate bowl, which, I mean, the infrastructure required, and I'm sure it was a very complex deal. They're a very secretive, low-key brand, so I know that you had to keep things under wraps. And you worked with Jason Greenstone, who's an awesome broker in New York, and between the two of you guys, collaborated. Tell us about that and how you brought an amazing brand to an amazing market. And now, thousands of customers every month get to go experience this really unique piece of real estate.
Relationships, luck, timing. Jason and I were introduced to the business by the same person. That deal happened at such an incredible pace because of trust and relationship. It was, tell me what you need. I'll go back to my side and see what I can do from both of us. And that was the negotiation of the LOI, and that was the negotiation of release. It was always solution oriented. We joke that sometimes a landlord will complain that a deal's taking 6 months. I'm like, I've been working on deals for 2 years. What do you mean 6 months? 6 months is a joke to me when you tell me a timeline of working on a deal. Mm-hmm. And that deal flew, but it didn't come without struggle. Take it back to 2018 when I first moved here and I represented the Guindies at 80 Northeast 40th Street. I was afraid to market space in the design district. It was $115 a foot, triple net. It was quiet. There was Main Street. There were a couple of spillover blocks and a couple of spillover spaces. There were good brands there, but it wasn't the design district that it is today. And obviously COVID really changed the market and made it what it is today. DACRA, which owns 92% of the district, only had a handful of spaces that ended up going to Gucci on our corner, to a 2-story, Louis Vuitton men's, left the women's, and made 2 separate stores. There's only 2, full building profile, and we had one. And I think what happened was most tenants came to the building and said, the black cladding, you guys blocked like all the windows. I can't really see inside. And if you just asked me, I would have told you no one cares from ownership. You want to change the facade, change the facade. And Supreme came in with their own vision. And they said, yeah, black doesn't work for us. We're going to go with this metallic chrome finish. And yeah, the slates don't work for us. We're going to take them out. And you know what we said? Cool, go for it. And now what is it? A badass skate park on the mezzanine, which by the way, is a piece of art, right? That was built into our release. They are going to remove that piece of art if they ever leave the space. Hopefully they stay forever and ever. That was absolute luck, where we had signed a lease with another tenant that was open to a buyout. We negotiated the buyout. We had Cartier come in for a short term while Supreme was working on their permit plans. Everything just worked out beautifully, but timing and all of that luck that I just mentioned, it's a part of it. You can work your butt off, and sometimes you just get that phone call from a friend, which was Jason, and said, I can't tell you who it is, but I promise you know them, and you just got to roll with it. We negotiated all of the terms, essentially all of the terms, without me knowing who I was talking to, based off of trust. And then he told me it, and I said, okay, great, now let's run. And thank God they're killing it today. When we find people on the other side that can say, I'm just going to tell you my problems, come back to me with some type of answer, that's when we succeed.
It's really important to be solution oriented. And you talked a lot about trust in the Supreme deal. The beautiful thing about this industry is it's a lot of the same faces and players. Some people represent tenants, some represent landlords. But when you work on a deal, and some do both, and when you work on a deal with somebody, maybe 5 years later, they're representing a new tenant or a new development. And when you've worked with them and you know how they operate and you have a good working relationship, it's a really incredible thing. I've been fortunate enough to have done really awesome deals at American Dream with entertainment brands from Hasbro to Sesame Street, Nickelodeon, DreamWorks, retail and luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and then all the way into, Toys R Us. And those relationships, doing the deal at American Dream, have led to beautiful conversations and almost in some ways an expedited and accelerated ability to move a deal forward. Because when you know exactly how to communicate and you trust and there's already collaboration that's happened, it just benefits everybody involved. And that's one of the best things that I love most about our industry is we get to talk business, we get to make money together, then we get to go have a closing dinner and genuinely enjoy the conversation that we have, talking about family, talking about, things beyond work. And so how lucky are we? Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It's incredible. We hear all the honking. Let's get inside the car.
Let's do it. Let's go.